equations, and up there on the board you're going to notice something that looks a little different versus the problems you looked at. What's different in that problem?
There's a variable on both sides of the equal sign.
There's a variable on both sides of the equal sign, and so what ends up happening, how do you undo a square? Or a square root, sorry. How do you undo the square root?
You square it.
So I'm going to go ahead and square both sides right here. Now when I do that on the left side, what am I left with?
2n plus 3.
2n plus 3. And that's going to equal n squared. Now the question is, how do you solve this? This is a quadratic. And so in order to solve a quadratic, we need to get everything to one side of the equation. The other thing we need to do is we need to keep the square term positive. So what side am I going to move things to?
Right.
The right. So I'm going to subtract 2n from both sides. What else am I going to do? Subtract 3. On the left side, when I do that, what am I left with? 0. On the right side, what do I have?
2n.
N squared
Minus 2n.
minus 3. And so now, this looks real similar to something we looked at a few chapters back. And what we're going to do is we're going to factor this. Okay, so we remember how we factored this? We looked for, by the way, what would be the first term in each of those parentheses?
N.
N. And then I'm going to look at this last term and I'm going to say I want two factors of 3 that differ by 2. What are those two factors of 3?
3 and 1.
3 and 1. How do I get a negative 2 from 3 and 1?
Negative 3 positive 1.
Negative 3 positive 1. So now in order to solve that equation, what you do is you set each of these equal to 0. The first one I set is n minus 3 equals 0, because that comes from right there. Okay? If I add 3 to both sides, what do I get n to equal? 3. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the n plus 1. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here and solve this one equal to 0. What would you do now? Subtract 1, so what do I get n to equal? Negative 1. Now if you remember, one of the things whenever you square a radical equation, you have to check your solutions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the number 3, and I'm going to plug 3 in up there. So I've got 2 times 3 plus 3, the square root of that. So what is 2 times 3 plus 3?
9.
9, because that's 6 plus 3, right? What's the square root of 9?
3.
3. It does equal 3, which is perfect. Okay? So that means that n equals 3 is a solution. Now I'm going to do the same thing with n equals negative 1. So I've got 2 times negative 1 plus 3. I'm taking the square root of that. What's 2 times negative 1? Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. So does the square root of 1 equal negative 1? No. So this is what we call an extraneous solution. It's extra, which means it doesn't count. Okay, so we get rid of it. We just cross it off. Now, if I would have crossed off both solutions, if both of them would have worked, my answer would have just been no solution. Now, could you have both answers work? Yeah, you might have both of them work. So this is the thing. You're either going to get no solution, you might get one solution, or you might get no solutions. Let's look at another one. Whoa! Let's go back. There we go. Now this one's got a little more work to it. I can guarantee you that. So we have the square root of 3x minus 5, and that's going to equal x minus 5. What's the very first thing you do?
Square.
Square both sides. So on the left side, I have 3x minus 5. On the right side, when you square something, that means you take it times itself. So really, I've got x minus 5 times x minus 5. How do you multiply that?
X times x and
Yeah, you FOIL, right? So I start with my first terms. What do I get from my first terms?
x.
What do I get from the outer terms? Negative 5x. What do you get from the inner term? What do I get from my last terms? Now, this is what type of equation? Quadratic, which means I need to get everything to one side. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x. And then what else am I going to do? Add 5. Now, that right side is looking kind of a mess, and that's okay. We'll take care of it in a little bit. So what's left on the left side? 0. On the right side, notice I have an x squared, right? Now I have a negative 5x, negative 5x, negative 3x, negative 13x. 25 and 5, 30. So this is a quadratic. So what do I try to do now?
Two factors.
Yep. So I try to factor. What's the first term in each?
X.
X. So 2 factors of 30 that add to 13. 10 and 3. How do you get a negative 13? Negative 10 and negative 3. Very good. So I have 2 quantities I'm going to solve. The first one will be x minus 10 equals 0. Okay, in which case, what do you get x to equal? 10. My next one will be x minus 3 equals 0. So what does x equal? 3. So let's go back and check. So the first one I'm going to try is the 10. So I've writ, what's 3 times 10? So I've writ 30 minus 5, which is writ, which is 5. Does that equal 10 minus 5? Yep, so there we go. 10 is a solution. So now what's 3 times 3? 9. So I've writ 9 minus 5. What's writ 9 minus 5? Writ 4, which is 2. Does that equal 3 minus 5? Does it? Yes or no? No. It equals actually negative 2. So we cross off the 3. The 3 is what kind of solution? Extraneous. Means extra. All right, so now you should be able to finish your assignment. Oops. Let's go back to that slide. Oh my goodness, the board's jumpy. There we go. Remember, this is your assignment that you need to finish. You need to get the entire thing done. It's due tomorrow. We'll probably end up having a worksheet over this tomorrow as well. Okay.